So in our last video, we added some animations to our character when he wins, when he fails. In this video, we're going to add a little bit more character to him, and we're going to even also be more informative to the player on how close he is to hitting the wall by moving the character's eye around when they're close to a wall or something like that. So what we're gonna do is there's some different ways to do this, but how I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna have 4 triggers around the character. I just want him to move down, right, left, and up. So if something's up, then I'll move his eyes upwards, and so forth, relative to him, because he rotates, so it'll be relative to his rotation. So I'll start doing this. I'm going to create an empty within player, and I'm going to call it wall checker top. I'm going to add a component for box collider 2D. Make sure that's a trigger, and I'm going to add that he's on the top, so it's going to be like maybe 2 or something. Yeah, it's a good. We might have to adjust these later, but for now that's fine. And then I'm going to add a component to this guy. It's going to be a new script, and it's going to be I'm going to call it wall checker. And then we'll edit that in a second, but let me duplicate this just to get my character set up. So next we'll do bottom, and we'll make it -2, and then we'll do right. I can't see it. Right, and we'll move the X, maybe 1. And then make the size bigger, so I'll make the Y bigger. Should I do 3? Maybe. I'll try that. And then this guy will be 3 as well. But 0 and -1. Okay, so if you look at this, this is all of the box colliders that we have here. So we're not really covering these little corners, but I think it'll be a rare instance that something gets in there. We'll see. We might have to adjust a little bit. Maybe these top 2 we can make a little bit wider. 1.25, 1.5. Yeah. Okay. That's good coverage, I guess. Alright, so we got our wall checkers. These are all triggers, and then let's double click and let's look at our wall checker. This is just going to be on trigger enter 2D with it takes in a collider 2D. We'll call the collider 2D other to refer to the collider that we're colliding with, not our own collider. And now we need to send a message to our player controller, and that's where we'll change the location of the eyes. So a few ways to do this. We can find the player in the scene and send message, but it might be a little bit more optimal. We know that each one of these is connected, is a child of player already, so we can just basically say find my parent, transform.parent, and then send a message, and we can call this we'll call the function like look here or something like that, and then we want to tell them where to look. Nice thing about send message is that you can send the name of the function, and then also one object value, and what we're going to do is we're going to send them the transform. We'll just send them which transform. So in the player, we'll check the transform of this. So and then we'll use this to look in the right direction. So we're going to send our, basically use our position of our transform. Okay. Now in our player controller, we need a new function. This is going to be, what do we call it? Look here. And we're actually have some input in here now. So we'll feed in a transform. And what do we want to call it? We can call it look position. Okay. And so we need to get the irises from our player, and we could go through and like look through children and find the name of the children we want, but just to make it easier on you guys, I think we can just make them public and say public transform. Yeah, we'll do a transform iris 1, iris, or iris left, iris right. Okay. Let me get both of our irises, and we need to change the position of them. So we'll do iris left dot. Let's change our local position, not our world position. We want the positions to still be relative to our player. So I want to add to its position. So wherever it's at, I want to add like the direction. And before I do that, I want to, I just want to set it to be in the center of his eye. So new vector 3, let me make that 0, 0, 0. Okay, and then immediately after that, we will add to its position, feeding in our transform with the look position. Look position dot local position. And let's normalize that, so wherever the position is, it's going to be in terms of 0, 1, a little direction, nothing larger than 1. And then we need to determine how far we want him to look. So I'm going to set a parameter up here, a public float. And then we're going to do look distance. So how far we want the irises to move. So we'll multiply this vector by the look distance. Space that out just for visibility. Oh, and this should be a local position. Okay, we're adding to the iris's local position. And we want to do the same exact thing for iris right. Yeah, we could do something like just set iris right equals iris left for local position, but we can just leave it at that for now. It's fine. Okay, so we're changing both of those. Let's look at my player, and now I need to feed in a look distance. So if I do like 1, we can sort of test that out and then go from there. And then let's just drag in both of our irises. save? I saved. I didn't save this. Save all. Okay, so 1 is way too much. So actually I can see how far. So it's at 0.3, and that looks pretty good. So let's use that instead of 1. Alright, so he looks into the direction. I can rotate him around, and he will look wherever the wall is closest. Relatively. Okay. It gives him a little bit more character. So looking at our new look method, a little problem I have with it is that he seems like nonchalant, a little observant about walls around him, and I kind of want him to look like he's a little bit frightened or that he's getting too close, and it's maybe nerve-wracking, more like it is for the player. So I'm going to add a quick animation to this guy. Move this around real quick. So we already have, in a previous video I showed how to animate his win and his death state, so we're just going to add to that and create another clip, and we'll call it surprise or scared. Yeah, we can do scared, whatever. And how we're going to do this is that, like, I'm just going to use the anime method of scaling his iris really small when he's kind of in shock or frightened about something. So maybe half the size or 0.5 times the scale. Yeah, so we can just we can do the trick that we did before and just like record and do 0.5 for that guy, and 0.5 for that guy, and we can stop recording. Great. Now we need to say we need to trigger when this happens. So I'm going to create another parameter. See, there's our new animation. I'm going to create a new parameter in our animator, and what I'm going to do is I don't want this to be triggered at any state, because if he's already happy or if he's already knocked out, I don't want him to overwrite that and look scared. So I'm just going to do it from idle. I'm going to make a transition, and then I need a new parameter for this. So I'm going to say, let's trigger scared. And we'll set a condition scared. And I don't want any transition time for going from big to small. I think I want it to just like immediately, because his eye movement is immediate too, so I think that would be better. But eventually I don't want his eyes to be small forever, so I'm going to make a transition back after a certain amount of time. So if you look at here, into idle, it's not really, what can I select player? That's right. So there should be some transition. This might be too long, but we'll test it out. So in code we need to send a trigger. We can do this for player because there's already an anim here. So when look here happens, I'm going to grab the animator and I'm going to set a trigger, and that one's going to be scared like we called it before. And now we're triggering this, and this one just has an exit time. So let's test this out and see if he looks a little more scared. Oh, the scale is way too big. Okay. Okay, so it takes like a second for him to get smaller actually, so something's probably up with maybe if he doesn't have an exit time. Okay, that's more immediate like I hoped. Let's see how long it takes for him to okay, he transitions. I think it's actually a decent transition time. He's looking all around him. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not even going to mess with this at all. I'm going to leave it at 0.75 and 0.25. So now he looks around and he looks a little bit more scared when the walls are around him.